Hello and welcome to another video. This is part 4 in the 10-part xAPI and articulate storyline tutorial series. So if you've been following along, then you are in the right place. And if not, then you probably want to go back and watch the first 3 videos, because if you haven't been following along, this is going to get a bit confusing. So we are moving into the intermediate tutorial series. In this video particularly, we're going to look at how we can collect additional activity information so that we can make our xAPI statements a bit more robust and professional. And despite this being one of the intermediate tutorials, it's actually going to be kind of easy if you followed along with the first 3. So if you were able to send an xAPI statement successfully using those first 3 videos, then this one is going to be a piece of cake. We're just going to make things a bit more interesting. So let's dive in. Go ahead and open up your xAPI statement.js file that we've been working on. So this is the JavaScript file we've been using. It's where we have our send statement function that we made in the last video. And what we're going to be looking at specifically today is this object. So, in our xAPI statement, we have the actor, the verb, and the object. Right now, we only have the object ID and its display. So, we know that the user selected choice A, for example. But we want to add some more details to this. And we're going to add the object type, the activity type, and an object description. So we'll get to each of those things in good time. The first thing we want to do is go ahead and add the object type, and that will be a child to the object itself right here. So right now we have the ID, and then we have this definition object. So let's add a comma after that, and we'll add object type. So you're probably wondering what the value for this will be, and if you are, then that's a good thing to wonder. So it can be a few things. So the object can be an activity, and in 99.9% of cases where you're going to want to use xAPI, at least when you're getting started, the object type will be activity. Okay, so that's like, Devlin completed the tutorial, the course, the question, those are all activities. Now, the object can also be an agent, which would be a person. So for example, Devlin greeted Susie. Susie would be an agent. It's not an activity. And same thing for groups. The object can also be a group where Devlin greeted team A, or Devlin, was hired by management. So it can be an activity, an agent, a group. And these last 2 are a bit more rare, but it's also possible for the object type to be a statement reference, signified just by statement ref, exactly as you see it on the screen. And that would be if the object is an existing statement. So for example, Devlin flagged an existing statement, or Devlin reported an existing statement. You would use that statement ID as the object. And likewise, substatements. These ones look a little funky, but they signify future intent. So imagine we expect there to be a statement in the future about Devlin earning a badge or something. At this point right now, if I were to declare my intent to do that, we could send off a statement saying Devlin planned, Devlin earned, or Devlin achieved this xAPI certificate. So again, not really important. I just wanted to give a brief overview of these other object types. The one you need to worry about is activity, and that's the one we're going to be adding to our statement. So let's hop back over to the code. So with our code open back up, let's go ahead and add that activity object type, just spelled like this. So it's nice and easy. It doesn't need to be a uniform resource identifier. Really simple. We're done with that piece. Now let's go ahead and add an object description, which is where we can provide some additional information about the xAPI statement if a person was looking at it and wanted to get some better idea about what was going on. So the description is a child to this definition object. So we'll add a child right after the name key value pair. We'll add in description. And since the language that the description is in is important, we will need to add this object with a language code. And this is where the description would go. We would enter, this is a description for an xAPI object. So that's just a placeholder for now. We're going to wind up, swapping this out depending on what xAPI statement we're sending. But let's add the final piece, which is the activity type. So the object type is an activity, but what if we want to know what type of activity it is? For example, is the user, viewing a resource? Are they answering a question? What is that activity? So we can add that also as a child to this definition object using this type property. Okay? And since the resources or the questions in our course will be, the same types of activities as resources or questions in other people's courses, we don't want to come up with a new type here. We want to use a uniform resource identifier, particularly the same one that these other e-learning developers and instructional designers are using. So we're going to hop over here to a registry. So, like I said in a previous video, we would want to use this xapi.vocab.pub, server, vocab server, but they are offline right now. So we're just going to go back to this registry.tincan website. So that's registry.tincanapi.com. They do have a lot of these outdated activity stream verbs on here, but we're just going to find the ones we want. So for example, if say the user was viewing an article, the activity type would be article, and we would use this URI right here to signify that. So just for example's sake, I'm going to copy this, and in type, as the value for this type key, we're gonna paste in that URI between quotes, and it would look exactly like this. So if you made it this far with your code, we're in good shape. We have the object type, we have a description for our object, and we have the activity type. And this is a URI, so it's interoperable. Everything is looking good. But what's not looking good is that not everything the user does in our course, or not every activity the user, engages in our course is going to be an article. And the description definitely isn't going to be the same for everything they do in our course either. So these two things are going to change, just like the verb ID, the verb, the object ID, and the object change. So to account for that, we need to add a couple of new parameters to our function up here. So if you followed along with the last tutorial, you'll just have verb, verb ID, object, and object ID. But we need to add new ones now for this object description and the activity type. So we'll add a comma, we'll type in object description, we'll add another comma, and we'll type in activity type. So you'll notice they're a different color because they're not being used anywhere in our code right now. So once you have them added here and you have the commas where they need to be, let's go ahead and just swap out these placeholders we added with these parameters. Because remember, now we can use them like variables, just like we did with object ID, object, and the rest of them. So let's get rid of this description string, and we're going to type in object description as a parameter. So when we execute this code and we tell it what the object description is at the time we execute it in Storyline, it will put it right where it needs to be in the xAPI statement. And same thing with this activity type. Let's just get rid of that placeholder I had, and we'll use this parameter, activity type. And if you've made it this far, then we're good to go. Just make sure you have your commas in place, make sure everything is spelled and capitalized exactly as it is here. And once you've made it that far, go ahead and do Control S or Command S to save your file, or you can just go to File, Save. And with your code saved, we're done playing around in here with this code. We're gonna hop over to the Storyline file. So this is the Storyline file we've been working on over the last couple of videos. We have the name and email address for the user to enter so we know who they are. And then we have this really simple practice question with 3 choices and a view cheat sheet option. And the cheat sheet just tells the user what the answer is. So right now, let's go ahead and press choice A and press JavaScript over here on the right where it says execute JavaScript. And that will open up this dialog box where we can see exactly what JavaScript is getting executed. So, sorry, just looking back over in our code, we can see we have these first 4 that we need, the verb ID, and the object ID. You know, answered is the verb, here's the verb ID. Choice A is the object, and this URI right here is the object ID. Remember, the best way to do this would be by making the question the object, and choice A would go in a, you know, the actual response they gave would go at a different part of the xAPI statement. But we're not going to get there until a later tutorial, so we'll just leave this as it is for now. But what we do need to do is add these next 2 parameters. So I'm going to just copy from this comma right after object ID to right before this closing parenthesis. So I'm going to do Control-C to copy. I'm going to hop back over in Storyline. I'm going to put my cursor right between that quotation mark and that closing parenthesis, and then I'm going to paste this in. And so now we just need to replace these parameters with the arguments that we want to pass to the function. So I'm going to highlight object description, and I'm going to, in quotes, pass in the actual description. So the description will just be question in Devlin's sample quiz. And then I'll end my quotes, making sure the comma is outside of the quotes. And once we've added that description, we just need to add the activity type. So, again, we want to make sure we're using the same activity type that the rest of the community agrees upon. So I'm going to do Control F and search for a question. So the first option it gives me is this activity streams URL. We don't want to use that. This one, again, is more outdated, not really maintained. So I'm going to keep searching. And here we go. We want to use this one. So a question is typically part of an assessment and requires a response from the learner, a response that is then evaluated for correctness. So that is what we're going to wind up doing with this sample question. So let's copy this URI, this adlnet.gov one. Let's go over here to Storyline, and then let's replace where this activity type parameter. We're going to add a quote, paste that URI, and end the quote so that we can pass it in as a string. So with that in shape, we're telling the description, it's a question in Devlin's sample quiz, and we're telling it that the activity type is a question. That's perfect. Let's copy from that comma right after the choice A closing quotation mark and before this end closing parenthesis. I'm going to copy everything between those 2 points. I'm going to select choice B and open up that JavaScript. I'm going to click right between that quotation mark and parenthesis, and I'm going to paste in what we copied. So again, it's the same for all of these because they're all 3 of these choices. We're saying it's a question in the sample quiz, and it's a question activity type. So I'll press OK, and we'll do the same for choice C. I'm just going to paste it right in. So we're good with the choices, but now we have this cheat sheet xAPI statement that we're sending. So we're saying that the user is viewing a cheat sheet. I'm going to paste in what we have. It's not a question in Devlin's sample quiz, so we're going to change this description to a cheat sheet in Devlin's sample quiz. And instead of the question activity type, we want to use the resource activity type. So here we go. A resource is a generic item that the actor may use for something. It could be a video, a text article, a device. That sounds good to us. Let's go ahead and copy this URI, and we're going to replace the question URI with this resource URI. So once you've done that and you've swapped out these elements for the cheat sheet, let's press OK, and we are ready to go. So once you've updated all 3 of those execute JavaScript triggers, let's go ahead and publish our course and see if we can get these statements firing. So I'm going to publish it for web. I'm publishing it to my desktop. I'm just going to name it collect activity info. So we'll press publish. And once it is published, let's go ahead and press open so that we can get inside the folder that has all of these course files. So if you remember, there are two things we need to do here. We need to add the JavaScript scripts that we need, and then we need to link to them from our story.html course. So I'm going to go over here to our xAPI statement file, and I'm just going to do file, save as. I'm going to navigate to my desktop, and I'm going to go right into that folder that we just published. So once you've navigated to that storyline folder you just published, just go ahead and save this file there. And if we look at it, we'll see now we have the xAPI statement.js file in this folder, but we do need one more piece. We need the xAPI.min.js wrapper. So the xAPI wrapper file. So you get that by going to github.com/adlnet/xAPI wrapper/releases. And then you'll need to scroll down a little bit and you'll get this first link right here. That's one way to do it, and then from your downloads folder you can just move it into your new published output folder. But what I do a lot, just because I find it to be efficient, is I'll just go into I'll just go into last week's output folder. So let's see, storyline output. So you can just actually copy it. I know we did this on the last video, so I'm just going to copy this from a previous project, and I'm going to navigate back to back to this new one we just published, and there we go. I just copied it and pasted it. That file is not going to change. It's the wrapper. So you can download it from the site I showed you, or you can just copy it from a previous project where you used it. So now it's all good that we have these files in here, but we need to edit our story.html file and tell it that it has access to these files. So let's right click it. I'm going to click open with code. If you don't have that option, do open with and then select your code or text editor. So it should open it up. You'll be up here at the top, but you want to scroll down to the bottom and find this closing body HTML tag. So it looks like this. It's the third line from the bottom. We're going to go right before it and add a couple of line breaks so that we have a spot to add these script tags. So again, you can add those script tags from scratch. You can copy them from my tutorial website, or my personal favorite is to just copy it from a previous project as well. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to quickly navigate to the output folder from my last video. I'm going to open that story.html file with code. I'm going to go to the bottom, and nice and easy, I'm just going to copy these two script tags. So you can pause the video here if you want to see exactly how those tags are spelled, if you don't want to navigate somewhere else to get them. I'm going to copy those, go back over here, and paste them in this new story.html file. I'm going to do Control S to save this story.html file. You can also do File Save. And I'm going to navigate back over to the storyline output that we just published, and we can double click the story.html file to open it in our browser. So this is the moment of truth. Let's go ahead and test this to see if it works. So I'll say my name is Activity Tutorial. I'm just doing this so it's really easy to see in the LRS. You should put your real name here. And I'll just do my email is activity@tutorial.com. Again, put your real info. This is just for testing purposes. So what is the answer? We'll put choice A. So I clicked it. It doesn't do anything though. Now I'll view the cheat sheet. It tells me the answer is C. So I'll put choice C now. So that's good. Now we need to look in our learning record store and see if it actually received our data. So I have mine open right here. Pause the video now to open up your learning record store to make sure that you have the data if you want. So once you are in the learning record store, in Veracity, we're going to click on this xAPI data option, and then we're going to click on this statements option right beneath it. So sure enough, we can see that the statements came through. Activity tutorial answered choice A, viewed the cheat sheet, and then answered choice C. If we expand this statement and we look at this object, we can see the description. Yes, it's a question in Devlin's sample quiz. We can see the type. Here's that question URI that we added. And we can see the object type is an activity. So what we did worked, and I can actually configure this statement stream. We're going to turn off the date it was stored and say we want to, let's see. We would actually have to add a custom field. So choose a path. So we're going to do object, and here are our options: definition, ID, or object type. Let's do definition, and now we can add that description. So we want to see the object description in this field, and we'll pick the English option. So that's perfect. We'll add that field. We'll close this box. And sure enough, in this statement stream now, we can see those object descriptions. This is a question in the sample quiz. This is a cheat sheet in the sample quiz. And this one was a question. So I hope that's clear. Again, you can modify this statement stream however you want. The important thing is that we added more information to this xAPI statement. It's more professional. Different people who are looking at this will have a better idea of what's going on, and that's exactly what we were going for here. So that is a wrap for this video. Again, we didn't do anything new and exciting here, but hopefully it did reinforce some of the principles we've been discussing earlier. And it's just good to have those elements in all of your xAPI statements, so make sure you add them. If you have been getting value here and you do want to keep learning more about xAPI and articulate storyline, then make sure to subscribe, because there's a new video coming every week. And if you want to hop in live and dig into some of these things together, then I do have live crowdcasts. So I'd love to see you there. Just Google Devlin Peck Crowdcast and register. We're going live every week, and we've been having a lot of fun with all of this. So thanks for checking out the video. If you have any questions, hop in my Slack and feel free to ask them, or drop a comment below, and I'll be happy to help. And thanks again. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.